My name is Yusseri Yusoff, born in Kuala, grew up in KL, went to school in Victoria Institution. I did my A-levels here, and then my undergraduate in Sheffield University. It was electronics engineering with a major in computing. After that, I did that in 92, finished in 95. After that, I immediately went to do my master's in telecommunications and information systems in the University of Essex. After that, in 96, I immediately went to do my PhD at the University of Surrey in the field of computer vision at the School of Mathematics, Physics, and something or other. It sounds grand, but basically I was just sitting in the lab every day for 4 years. So that's it. That's my educational background. I don't have a lot of free time, which is a surprise to me. But the rest of the time I ride motorcycles or I ride a bicycle, where I ride something with 2 wheels anyway, or generally drive, but that's what I do. So we'll start with piano, right? Short POGT. Here at POGT, I mainly manage a very small team. We have 3 main responsibilities in our team. We call it special projects largely because we couldn't figure out what to call it, this department. So the first one is we do digital marketing insight and analysis. So one of our sister companies is Pacific and Northern Insurance, which does general insurance, which means cars, bikes, houses, boats, factories. So they insure these things. So obviously the one that is most familiar to most people are cars and motorcycles. So in 2020, we launched an online purchase type thing, so you can buy your insurance from us online. So from then on, we started on a journey, as it were, to do digital marketing, Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, can't stand it, but there you go. So we had a department that does analysis of these things, number of hits, number of visits, we even track their mouse movements and to see how many people stopped at where, at which point in the purchase process, that sort of stuff. That's one department. We've got another department that handles part of the group at Pacific and Orient also has a company in London that in turn owns several other small startup companies in London. So one of those things that we are in charge of, that I'm in charge of, is a fintech in London called Silicon Markets that does algorithmic trading for currencies. It's a mouthful and it is as complex as it sounds, and it's not been easy. So we've got also a small team of developers here and in London that does these things. And the third thing that we do is hardware maintenance for a rather boutique set of clients. The main one is Malay Mail. So these are the 3 things here. Do I need to say about the other stuff? Right, yeah, okay, I've got other stuff. So meanwhile, at the same time, before I joined P&O Global Technologies, I was also running a server maintenance company, which spawned off of a startup company that I had, which was funded by MathCap, which ultimately failed. That startup company wanted to do, we call it OTT boxes, over-the-top boxes for television. So what you see with the Android boxes today was something that we started trying to do in 2005, but because we were very small, we didn't have the kind of engineering and marketing power really of the bigger boys, especially those from China. It was inevitable that we failed. But out of that, we also, because we needed to generate revenue, we did server maintenance. So we started off maintaining the Malaysian Insider, which then expanded to the Malay Mail, Oriental Daily, and then there were a few smaller ones. One of them was the Nut Graph. And I think we still have a few now today. That's one. So, the third, so that's 2 things, right? So the third one is a magazine called Roda Roda. It's a motorcycle magazine. It was started by my late father, who passed away in 2012. So I inherited that pretty much. But my stepmother has been working on it and she's been managing the staff and all that. So I don't do much apart from, going in and say a few words, that sort of stuff. And then we moved as much as we can online for that thing, for the magazine. But it's been a very interesting journey there, because people have been telling us that print is dying, and I guess it is, but it has been a very long, slow death. I think it's been a decade now that people have been telling me that, there's no point in having print anymore. But in this past decade, we're still printing. So that's very interesting. That's 3. The 4th thing is we also have a coffee shop now. I do. I'm a part owner of a coffee shop called Richiamo Coffee in Sungai Besar. This is partly because my wife, who was a lecturer at UiTM, decided to not teach anymore. She said she was happy with teaching. She wasn't happy with the admin stuff and KPIs and whatnot. So I said, yeah, okay, got to do something then. So we decided to embark on this little project of ours. So now we have a coffee shop. So that's very, very interesting. Last and final, I think, because I may have forgotten, I'm pretty sure I've forgotten another company, but obviously it's not making a lot of money, otherwise I wouldn't forget. And the last one is a company called Motomaniac Travel Adventures in Denmark. This one does off-road trail riding. Just recently acquired. It's a company that in fact mainly caters to expats and overseas visitors that come to our country. We've got 12 off-road motorcycles of various sizes and capabilities, and we get these matsalis to come over, and we take them to the jungle because they're mad. So we take them to the jungle, 60, 70 kilometers, palm tree plantations, rubber plantations, perkampungan asli, gravel roads, fire roads, forest tracks, that sort of stuff. I've only done it a few times leading them. It's very exhausting, and sometimes staying in an air-conditioned room is so much more attractive. But yeah, so that's the five things. Terrible. Look, yeah, I think there's a follow-on question whether I'm a hands-on or hands-off, right? Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, there is.
I tell you what, here's the thing, right? For me, for the most part, because I've worked in a largely professional environment, excluding the coffee shop, but more on that later, or on the dirt thing. So, for the most part, we hire people that we want, that we expect to be able to do the job, right? You don't hire someone as a programmer who doesn't code, right? You don't hire someone to do marketing who's a terrible introvert. Nothing wrong with being an introvert, but you may not want to use that person as a marketeer. Okay, so that's what it is, right? So essentially, you try to get people that are fit for purpose. So now, once you try to get people who are fit for purpose, then you would expect them to be able to do what they're supposed to do. Then you also need to be, as a person, as a leader, you need to be introspective as well. You need to understand that whilst they may be competent at their job, in the working world, it's not often that's all that you need to do, right? So you need to be able to guide them, you need to be able to tell them what you expect out of them, and you need to be able to sort of tell them if they're not delivering and to work with them. So now, whether it's a hands-on or hands-off, whether you spend time with or without with your staff or not, a lot of it depends on what sort of work that needs to get done and the person you talk to. For me personally, and I think anyone knows this, I tend to sort of not have too much interaction with people. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, get this done, right? If you don't get this done, okay, what's the problem? Let's try and fix it. So that's for what we do here in a professional environment, and that's important for you guys as well. And you go out into the working world, 90% of the time, what you expect to happen doesn't, right? And my own, as an example, my PhD was a very narrow field. I was part of the working group that was working on MPEG-4 video codecs. Right, this is how long ago it was. It was when we started. It was 1996, right? So we're part of a working group. There are two different working groups. One headed by Microsoft, another one headed by Ericsson. So we're working on these things, and it's very, very narrow. For the longest time, I thought that my entire career will begin and end in academia, but it hasn't happened that way. right? You know, it hasn't, you know, if you said to me 20 or 25 years ago that I would also have a coffee shop, an off-road company, and a motorcycle magazine, along with doing algorithmic trading, I would say that you're off your trolley. You know, you need to get your head checked. But that's what it is. What it means is that things don't always happen according to plan. So, you know, you need to be able to understand. You need to be able to understand the people that work for you, under you, with you, and adapt. You expect your staff to adapt, but you as a person also have to adapt. That's it. There is no religion in the world that tells you to be a bad person, right? Religion in the world that tells you to treat others like scum. So this is something that I think that, you know, whether you're a Muslim or otherwise, then you need to be able to sort of bring good values, right? Just be good, you know, because and then that's the other thing, right? In this world, whether you end up working here or someday you might work somewhere else, you might end up working in Singapore, you might end up working in Vietnam, you might end up working in, you know, Nicaragua. Right? Always remember that ultimately, everyone, whatever their religion, by the law of averages, we're all nice people, right? You might not like one person because, you know, he or she rubbed you the wrong way, whatever, right? But that person will probably still go home to his or her family, will still try to take care of the sick cat and all that, right? So this is the ultimate thing you need to remember. That on average, we are all nice people. There might be one or two Hitlers around, but we don't know. So that's the thing that we always have to remember, right? And sometimes, you know, sometimes we make fun of people, we say terrible things about people and all that, right? But we only need to remember that they always deserve respect, and they always, you know, that we always have a duty of care for those who work with us, who work under us, and who work for us, right? And I don't think, personally, you need to say that you have to be a Muslim to be that. Yeah, you just have to be a good person. The challenges. The main thing was that, you know, because in my case, because I got sent overseas, right? And I didn't come from a well-to-do family. I wouldn't say we were poor, but, you know, we were not great in that sense. You know, we weren't rolling in it. So daily sustenance was always a challenge. And this is something that I bring all the way to now, where I'm arguably a lot more comfortable than I used to be. So that was the main thing, right? And the thing about doing but then on the other hand, when you're doing a PhD, especially alone on your own, then it's very lonely, because doing a PhD is a special kind of loneliness, because you're trying to push the barriers of what is known. You know, it sounds fantastic, but it's not really, right? Because everything that we have done for a lot of the time are incremental changes, right? Incremental improvements. Right, like when I was like in the MPEG-4 group, you know, it only came after MPEG-1 and MPEG-2. There were no MPEG-3. I think it got abandoned halfway through, then it became MPEG-4, right? MPEG-1 itself came out from H261. So all these things are incremental, right? Improvements, and you're making one tiny little bit in whatever this incremental thing that you're doing. And for this tiny bit that you're trying to do, ideally, no one else is doing it, right? Ideally. Conversely, though, because no one else is doing it, you're on your own. So this is the biggest challenge at the time. More than anything else, you know, was the fact that, yeah, you've got supervisors, you've got colleagues, you've got lecturers, you've got friends, right? But ultimately, you're still on your own. That's always a big challenge. So for any of you that would want to continue studying, this is something that you need to be prepared for, right? Is it rewarding? Absolutely. Because, you know, no one else has done what you were doing, right? Actually, you think no one else, you know, until somebody pushes a paper on something that you'll be working on, and some fella you don't know in you know, halfway across the world sends out another paper. But that's okay. Then you always learn again and you push again. So that's the main challenge. Undergraduate, it's mugging, right? Mugging. we call it, right? Just keep banging away. You've got paper, your lecturer gives you your coursework, gives you things that you need to do, these stuff like this that you got to interview random people off the internet. That's mugging. Masters is trying to finesse what you've learned in your undergraduate. PhD on your own. Challenges a lot, vary, okay, whatever. Assume that there have been terrible ones, assume that there have been really tough ones, except that there are certain times when you sit down alone thinking to yourself that, this is not going to work and you're finished. And then sometimes once you get past it, that's why sometimes I tell people, right? It's like, for example, like my wife last time when she was working at UITM and she'd get messages at 10 p.m. at night asking her to do this and getting this and that done. You used to tell her, you don't have to answer, you don't have to do it. Because when you wake up tomorrow, the problem will still be there, it's fine. But in some cases, like another one, when you have clients that demand your time in that sense, where you also then demand that they pay you for that time in that sense, then does it interfere in your daily life? Absolutely. Of course. It interferes with your family life. It interferes with your game time, right? You might have a T20 race in your league that you join, that you're supposed to do at 8 p.m. that night, but you can't because you got to do something else, like work, right? So it does. Those who push for work-life balance all the time also, I think, need to tell you, and to tell all of us that there are times when that balance gets tilted, becomes a bit off kilter. But Robert the Bruce has once said, right, for everything, in the good times and the bad times, we need to remember that this too shall pass. So even in the worst times when you're working really hard and it is interfering with your daily life, you always remember this too shall pass. When things are great and it's really fantastic and you feel like you've never been happiest in your life, also remember this too shall pass. That sense, then you will have a much better appreciation of your life. It's like making friends, right? I approach the world on the assumption that we are all nice people underneath, regardless, right? So it's like making friends. So that's the same thing, right? Of course, as an employer, then you know that you've taken them on for specific things to do. So that's always an easy thing. It's an icebreaker. Hi, nice to meet you. Welcome on board. It's really great. Okay, here's what I need you to do. Right? And it goes on from there. So how you want to get them motivated is it also depends on the people. So for example, when I first started working in my first company, the boss every Friday before work ends, I think we finish work at 5:45. 5:45. So at 5 he'll have his seat in front. All the mic, all the stuff, there were like 30, 40 of us. So he'll talk about, the weekend and starts giving pearls of wisdom like I'm sitting here yapping at you guys. Except that, he never finishes in 45 minutes. He'll just go on and halfway through about how awesome he has been in his life. At least that's what I recall, right? That did not motivate me at all. Right? So you need to sort of look at your audience, you need to look at your staff, you need to look at your teammates, your workmates, right? And work it out that way, right? And usually it's like I said, it's always eyes on the prize. So if you have a project to complete, things like that, a lot of it's internal, you need to do it. And if you're the manager, if you're the leader, then you have to make sure that they meet the timeline, that they meet the deadline, that they meet the time. If they don't, you need to ask them why. You need to engage, right? But don't spend, 1.5 hours every Friday telling them how great you are. That definitely did not work. Now, some people also, personally, I do not like family days. Right? There's sometimes a company does family days where you bring them, they start having this telephone shit and all that. That's not work for me at all. Right? But it's like that. So, but yeah, so that's that. From a systems engineering perspective, right? Usually when you do have a problem that you need to deal with, right? You don't really have time to sit there and explain to the client what's going on, right? Because if they knew what was going on, you wouldn't be hired to begin with. One. Secondly, especially as a system engineer, if you're working on a system that expects to be up 24/7, then you really need to work as fast as you can. So you really do not have time to engage with the clients, right? But of course, when you have people who help you, you have staff or people who work with you, then you can have them working on it whilst you go and try and explain. In many ways, if we're talking from a system engineering perspective, in many ways, I have always found that being very verbose about it helps as well. I mean, initially, like I said, I say very fast. It's like when somebody calls me, so what's going on? I say, I'm looking into it, we're fixing it, I'll let you know. Right? Quickly. Don't waste time. But in the middle of it, especially if someone's working on it, and we've understood and identified the core problem, what's going on there. I've always found the best thing to do is to be very verbose at that point. We say, system went down at 6:42 p.m. and this happened and that happened, and we're trying to look into it right now. We think that this is what's going to happen, and all that. System's going to be up, and sometimes you just tell them, this partition here, this. You go into the technicals, they will shut up. They will just be okay, then carry on. Right? And often you can do something like that for the most part because the clients know then that you are trying to do whatever you can, as best as you can, to solve their issues, right? So that's the main thing. And because this is not a retail thing, you're not dealing with individual clients that are, in the thousands, you can do this sort of stuff. Good management, I think, is one where you don't have to do very much. The good manager tries not to get in the way. This is the main thing. Right? If you have a team of engineers working for you, again, this is a very question, right? There's management book. Anyway, guys says the process, and for example, and more people would be dealing with only dealing further. Right? You try your best. Right? As we get older, you realize that times that by you cannot take back. Right? So you try your best. Yeah, and you also realize that there's no there's no ideal set of things that allow you, to just have a good work-life balance, right? So that's why you always keep trying to appreciate the times when you realize that there isn't much to do, but appreciate life, except that when we have too much to do, you wouldn't live forever. Yes. Right. Enjoy young people. I enjoy them more. I learning my money enough to be able to get like that. It's not a lot of people. It's not that I expect to be such a millionaire and be able to live the life like that. So not really. I think one of the things I love is being able to have enough companies getting enough that I'm able to hire a lot of people. And get all the learning. How to teach these things, how to teach this aspect, this is step by step. Because I do outsource